Welcome to another episode of Eagle Rock Records. Today I'm going to be talking about a few of the different types of audio media, records, cassettes, 8-tracks, reel-to-reels, and CDs. I'm also going to mention a little bit about like streaming, like Spotify, and just how each one of those compare to each other. So I hope you like this episode. So I get a lot of questions at the store about what type of media is the best to listen to, and the answer to that question isn't really simple. It really depends on a lot of factors, which I'll get into. So I'll just jump right into it. We'll start with vinyl, because we are a record store. I've just got a Beastie Boys record here to talk about. So with records, it's a analog style of recording, and it's a lot of people love records. I'm a fan of records. It's part of owning a record is the experience. Putting the record on, listening to a full album, going over to the record, flipping it. You do get some noise that is, from dust, wear of the vinyl, which is part of that. Records wear a bit. They can warp depending on the thickness and the quality of that record. Part of the record as well is there's a certain dynamic range that the record can record or can hold. I believe it's 50 to 70 decibels, something around there. So it's just from the low range to the high range. The record can only record within those frequencies, and then, but it is a very superior way to listen to music. Also, with any of these, when you're listening to, you can have a really expensive, you can have $1,000 record with the best quality in the world, but if you're listening to it on something like this, one of these suitcase record players, it's gonna sound terrible no matter what you're listening to, or no matter the quality of that record or anything. If you're playing it through something like that, it's just really gonna degrade that audio.
I guess it would also come down to I guess it's subjective to when, for something to sound bad, you have to really hear something good before you can do a comparison. Somebody with one of those little record players there probably wouldn't notice. The sound, the lack of quality in the sound until they heard something better, right? So once you hear something better, I guess you're not gonna, you're kind of gonna reflect back to how bad something sounds.
Yeah, for me, I've we have a really amazing record player here, so I'm really keen, or I really clue in onto how flat those usually sound. I mean, the speakers are just these tiny little low-powered speakers. So for someone like me, I see it right away, but if that's something that somebody's listening to all the time, that's all they really listen to, it's possible that they don't notice it. I'd like to say though that it's super obvious once you listen to it on something else. So like, for example, we play records in our store, or music through our equipment all the time. And so I would like to think that even just coming into our store, you would hear how it sounds, and then you'd go home and be like, oh man, I need to get something better that's actually gonna showcase how good this album sounds. Just gonna keep going on this record here. Part of the record experience as well is the physical aspect of it, holding the record, the artwork, the sleeve, like the gate, if it's a gatefold, all the stuff that you get with that.
Collectability.
The collectability of records as well. We had a record that we were talking about, the Revelaires. That's highly collectible. Sometimes you don't even listen to it, but it's something that you enjoy just because of what it is. And you do get some of that with CDs. You'll get, maybe some lyrics, something like that, some artwork. Usually it's a lot smaller, so maybe if you like the larger stuff. I mean, I've seen things that come with posters, all kinds of stuff. And it's a full experience with the record album. And so that's part of why people enjoy records as well so much. And with the noise and everything you get with it, I'm a fan of it. Actually, it kind of just adds to it. It's not the same every time. You know, it just adds to that experience of listening to an album on a record.
And I think that kind of speaks also to the sound, the dynamics of the sound, going back to the stylus, the tone arm, everything, right? How it's sitting in that groove, how much how much of the groove it's picking up, the detail in the grooves. So yeah, I think, and like you said, you know, sometimes just the crackling of a scratch or dirt or whatever. I know there are some artists, I remember there's I can't remember, it was Gnarls Barkley or somebody sampled a Nat King Cole song. I can't remember what it was, but anyway, they do sample. A lot of records have sampled the crackling of an old record, right?
Well, I have a perfect example. The first video we did was Portishead Dummy. When I was reading about how they were making that album, if I remember correctly, they would take records that they were sampling and they'd put them on the ground, and the people would step on them to artificially alter the sounds so that they'd get what they were looking for. So that crackling and noise, you know, that's part of it. For a listener, you know, it can be just the experience. For somebody who's creating music, like sampling and whatnot, it can be extremely creative. You can really do a lot with just something as simple as the noise coming from a, you know, slightly damaged record, or you know, dirty record even. I'm going to move on to a few of the other things here. I'm actually going to jump, I think, to cassettes. Cassettes, they're also another analog style of recording. There's actually, it's a harder topic for cassettes as well, because there's, if I remember correctly, 3 or 4 different types of cassettes you can get, which have different quality and types of materials used. I believe there's, I can't remember the other ones, but I know there's a metal style, which, depending on those materials, I do believe you would need certain equipment to play some of those cassettes for the different materials, which, you know, I'll kind of backtrack just a tiny bit. The equipment of any of these is super important. It's if you don't have something good, it's not going to sound good no matter what it is, like I said before.
Yeah, I mean, there's a sorry to interrupt. There's a term out there called tape head. So these guys that are into tape type media, be it cassettes usually, or reel-to-reel, and 8-track tape, right? Any kind of tape. There's a term out there. People will call themselves tape heads. They could tell us. I mean, we know some about tapes, and like you said, the dynamics of the, you know, you see it on a high-end cassette player. You'll see like different CR or whatever, right? And then metal and the type of tape you're playing on it, and then. So yeah, I mean, those tape head people on like tapeheads.net site, they would have a lot to say about what you're talking about there with the different qualities of the tape. You know,
I'm just looking through a few things I took here. Like there's, I'm just going to list them off here. Type 1 is ferric. Type 2 is chromium dioxide. 3 is ferric chrome, and then 4 is metal. So I don't know the specifics, so I won't say anything because I don't want to give any wrong information. But there's, from what I can tell, 4 different styles of cassettes. And like he was saying, the tape heads, they're going to know exactly what they're looking for and what's really better in what circumstance. And you'll need that specific equipment, like I was saying before, as well, to play certain styles. Because, I know there's some equipment that can play multiple types of cassette. You would just have to change some of the settings to allow the cassette to be played properly, depending on the product or the type of material that's used, and all the different variations with that tape.
Yeah, and if you don't know, I know what I've done is I've put you put a cassette into the player, and if you're switching through those different settings, you can hear what's going to sound better. You'll switch to a certain setting. It's like, that don't sound right, you know?
Yeah.
So it can take advantage of that. So that's what I do when I don't know.
And that's something you get with some of the equipment as well, is you'll get some of those settings, because one of the downsides to cassette is you'll get the tape hiss, you'll get some noise just like you would with a record, you know, if the cassette tape is dirty. One of the things about cassettes is I believe they have a higher, let me see here. I believe they have a higher dynamic range actually than quite a few other media sources. I believe it's around 96 decibels, so that's quite high versus the records, which I believe was around 70. So you can actually get a wider range of lower to higher notes on a cassette deck or on a tape, and but you'll get some of that noise from the tape hiss and whatnot. But some of the settings on those pieces of equipment, depending on how high end they are, you can take out that hiss or that noise with some of the filters and like the high-low filters and other settings that they'd have, like from Dolby and whatnot. They are really good at getting rid of the tape hiss and whatnot.
So the marketing behind cassettes was, they're like a mini record. Like they're smaller. They stored, very very easy for storage. You still got the artwork of the album in most cases, and they didn't scratch.
I coincidentally have two of the Beastie Boys.
Yeah,
right
there you
here.
go. Look at that.
I actually don't have the CD or the other ones, but two Beastie Boys right here, same album.
Yeah, and they really there's no scratches to be worried about, right? So
They could get jammed and
they
pull
could. Yeah, there was all
apart
kinds of
or
other things
tear.
that could happen.
But-
However, they generally they were a good alternative, and of course, tape heads would say it is the best way to go, and of course, and they would argue their point. It's kind of hard to argue against the vinyl. I guess I'm biased there. We are,
Yeah, I'm biased. with it
yeah,
as well.
it's about the experience, right? However, the tapes are.
I can't argue with that. It has, from what I've looked into, I didn't know, but a higher dynamic range, so you can actually hear more of the highs and lows from a cassette versus a record. I don't know if there's a certain type of record. Like I don't know if a half speed or a different. I don't know if there's anything that they can change with the record to necessarily get more dynamic range. I believe it's kind of the limitation of the physical aspect of the record versus the cassette style. I don't actually know how the cassettes work fully myself. I'm actually going to have to look into it, because now it's kind of interesting because they're both analog records and cassettes, and so I'm kind of curious myself to understand why the tape has a bit more dynamic range than a record, even though they're both analog and the tape is just like this film, so it's hard for me to understand what is making it that a groove doesn't have more than a flat piece of tape. So I'm gonna have to look into that myself, just because I'm curious now.
Yeah, they're very collectible. Cassettes are very collectible, and they all have the term. A lot of people probably don't. Well, some people might know, but the term for the sleeve in there is called a J card. They're always called a J card, and you know why? If you hold it,
the shape.
that's right. It's shaped like a J.
Oh yeah, because the back side,
Yeah. So if you take out the
J
paper cover, it's actually shaped like a J. That can sometimes it's like a U if it's, but
J
90,
card.
probably 98%.
And actually, I might as well show it since I have it open. But there's actually quite a bit in here. It opens up quite a bit.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of info, like a lot of lyrics.
That's one of the better
Some
ones.
Cool.
Yeah.
I actually haven't seen a cassette deck or a cassette tape that I've opened up to see all of this and all this album artwork. That's really cool to see myself.
Really
as
cool.
Well.
Yeah.
I'll just put that back in there.
Older cassettes, in the early days, cassettes had instead of having it printed right on the cassette, they were sort of like a glued a sticker. There was a sticker on there, so you'll find a lot of the old cassettes that suffer from the same thing like the 8-tracks, where they're just moisture over the years cause it to crinkle up and fall off. So,
I'm going to move to the 8 tracks now because they're kind of like a cassette in the fact that they have a tape. Now, they are considered a more, from what I can tell, a more inferior type of media. They're prone to noise, hiss, just like the cassettes, possibly worse. They also have issues with jamming. They also don't have a rewind feature, which I've never actually listened to an 8-track myself, and I didn't know that you can actually rewind an 8-track. So if you want to get back to the same song or just the same section to re-listen to, you actually have to fast forward through it or listen to it until you get to that same part. You can also have a problem with, there's different programs on here. You can have it where, for example, this one says Rose Darling Begin, and then program 2 it says Rose Darling Continued. So partway through that song, it's going to stop, you're going to hear it click, and then it's going to continue. So in the middle of listening, your
favorite song, Rose Darling, gets interrupted.
Yeah, you're going to get an interruption right in the middle of it. And these things are prone to jamming and stuff, so who knows if you even get to finish that song, unfortunately. But they don't really last very well. They degrade. They're a bit more inferior to the other types of media. They're really cool. They're collectible. People do enjoy them just for the novelty of them and everything. We sell them quite often still, but when it comes to the aspect of media quality, even the dynamic range is quite low for these ones as well. So they don't hit the highs and lows as much of the other medias that we have.
Can you show the face of it, the inside? Oh, you can't really see it too well, but underneath the tape, just like a cassette tape, is a piece of foam. Every 8-track in the world suffers from the same problem. Even if it's a sealed 8-track, that piece of foam has deteriorated just over time and has caused bleed through. So if you put an 8-track tape, I don't care if it has not been restored with a new piece of foam, if you put an 8-track tape into an 8-track player, if we put that one in there right now because it has not been restored, you'll hear the song you want to hear, but you'll hear at a much lower volume another track on one of the programs, right?
It's kind of like playing two songs at
playing
once.
Two songs at the same time. The other one will be really low in the background, so when it goes quiet, you'll hear that song. So it's kind of annoying. So that's why they're more of a collectible than a source of audio for people to, unless you get the foam.
There's a reason that these didn't stick around for very long, and
that they actually stuck around for a really long time, but they did not sustain.
They haven't.
Yeah.
They didn't sustain like a following as much as like
more
for
only for
heads.
collectability. Yeah, they're
tape
still
heads,
making tapes today.
Yeah, like we have actually. Can you grab me that right over there? The Northern Renegades.
Yeah,
it's a band that Calgary based. This is a brand new cassette, so they only make cassettes. But this band, they only produced cassettes because they're pretty new, but they released on cassettes because it's just the easiest media. It's really nice. For me, I really like the orange cassette tape itself.
Yeah, you do a lot.
And I'm a big fan of anything orange, pretty much.
Yeah, the 8-tracks are kind of they just the quality and the changing of programs in the middle of a song. There's a lot of reasons why 8-track tapes didn't hang around.
Yeah.
I mean, I think there might be some 8-tracks out there, I may be wrong, still being made on a limited basis, just almost like a novelty. But there's plenty of them out there still sealed. But for me, they're more of a collectible.
Yeah.
It's really cool to have certain bands that you see all the time. Led Zeppelin on an 8-track, right?
Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Under the media, media quality aspect, it's quite an inferior media to listen to, but still listenable and still highly collectible. I'm actually going to go to reel to here. I actually don't have as much info on these, but I might be going to my director here to talk about them. From what I've researched, these are actually very out of all the different styles other than CD. These have a very high dynamic range to them. Let me just look at.
Yeah, when everything's right, when it's a good tape, a good machine, and a good sound system, it's arguable that there is no better audio source than a reel-to-reel tape.
Yeah, I'm just like again, like the cassette tape. I'm gonna have to look into reel-to-reel information because now I'm interested in how there must be some reason with the tape, because obviously they're both kind of the same technology. This is just a larger version, where the dynamic range is really, really good. So from low to high sounds, it really comes across through it. Like records and cassettes, you get that warm sound. They actually don't have any digital compression as well, which is really nice. Some media does have compression, which kind of kills some of the audio data that you get. But it's really, really good to listen to. Like you heard before, you need good equipment, just like anything else. So if you have a really high-end reel, I recommend listening to it on a high-end, hi-fi piece of equipment. We've got a few in the store here that are really good as well. What's the one, the big guy? That's a recording one, is it?
Yeah, that's an 8-track machine. It's a TIAC 8-track studio reel-to-reel.
Like to reel? Like,
so
it's just a larger film, right?
Yeah, that's a whole other topic, but it's you fit the tracks are across the tape, so you just go left to right or right to left, whatever. So, but not on top of, but next to.
Okay.
Next to, right? So 8 tracks are, this way the band could do 8 different things: drums, vocals, keyboards, guitars.
Recorded onto each track.
Into each track, so it's almost like a race. Think of a racetrack with 8 lanes, like a highway with 8 lanes on it. Right.
And for that one specifically, that means that
machine is for 8 tracks.
You can filter each track individually as well.
You can change
stuff. So
that's right.
That might be something we'll have to talk about in another episode. Just talking about that reel-to-reel once I learn more about it myself, because I'm still quite new at the reel-to-reel stuff.
But very collectible though, and they're hard to come by.
They're hard to come by. A lot of the reel-to-reels that I know of are all, I believe it's called homebrew.
Yeah, homebrew. So you'll get a lot of those. Those are great. You can find those everywhere, and we have some here in the store, and we're a little bit stingy with them because, we don't actually put them out for sale very much because they are, they're just kind of cool to listen to in the store. A lot of them will have people took their records and they put them onto the tape. However, what I like finding is homemade stuff where people recorded their own music on there.
Just on the topic of homebrew stuff, this record, it's a blank record when the person purchased it, but this is actually something somebody sent to their mother, I believe.
Yeah, it's a letter. A letter to say
it's a letter record. I believe on one side, it's just the radio, or the person recorded just the radio, and then the other side they're just talking to their mother, and they sent this through the mail. And I can't remember the whole conversation. It's really hard to hear. We're not actually selling this one because it's very damaged. It's also just really interesting. But it's talking, I know at one point he talked about I applied for this job and
we went to the Stampede.
Yeah, just all these really, he's just talking about his life with his mother, but just something really cool with homebrew. So something like that reel-to-reel, just...
When you find stuff like that, it's just really cool because
it's just cool.
Somebody did their own thing.
Who this guy has no idea where it is right now,
and we have no idea where he is.
We have no idea who he is, where he is, what happened with him. I don't even know when this was recorded, to be honest.
From the sound of it, it's the 50s.
Yeah, so, and I'm also gonna have to look into this recording blank because. It's really cool to just think that somebody at their house just recorded a record.
Or it might have even been in a booth at a fair or at a studio that was selling that, marketing that kind of thing where you can go in and do a letter.
Yeah. Actually, there is a date on here. I believe it was 58.
1958.
If you want to look there. It looks
it is 1958, yeah.
Yeah, July 28th, 1958. So
I would guess the guy's in his 20s from the sound of it, mid to late 20s.
He sounded pretty young.
Yeah, so he's probably not around anymore.
And like I was saying with pieces of equipment, getting rid of noise and stuff, I had to use that heavily to listen to this record the first time I did, with the low and the high filters and messing with that kind of stuff, just to hear better. But that's something that's really cool with the reel-to-reels as well, is that homebrew stuff, because you really don't know what you're gonna get until you just listen to it. But it's hard to come by ones that are like full albums.
So that's all.
I think this is the only one that we have.
No, we have a few.
We have a few. But, yeah, you don't come by full albums very often for reel-to-reel, but it's a very really superior way of listening to media.
So that's all the stuff you can touch, the wonderful media that you can own in your hands. What about the other stuff?
Well, I haven't talked about CDs yet.
Oh yes. How can we forget CDs? CDs are mini albums. They actually, that was when I remember buying my first CD, it's like buying a miniature album.
Yeah,
wonderful.
And with some of them, I don't know about this one, but you can get some really cool artwork. Booklets, like the lyrics. Sometimes you'll get like artwork and whatnot,
and on the CD.
And on the CD.
The print. Yeah.
I think at some point some CDs did start getting a little bit generic. They just had.
Well, they started as generic, very generic, with just the listing of the songs. It was very generic, and then they became, very lots of art on the CDs, and some bands are very bold enough not to. They put just about nothing on there.
And I think some of them even were double-sided. I believe.
Yes.
I believe it was very rare.
Yeah.
But there was some double-sided. I know for movies there was also some double-sided ones.
Yeah.
Like I'm a big Austin Powers fan. My name's Austin, so when I was a kid, kids called me Austin Powers, which I'm okay with. But I own one of those movies, and it's double or a collector's bit, and it's double-sided.
What's the quality like? What's your opinion on the quality there?
So CDs actually. They're pretty. They're considered more superior media-wise than records.
Pretty much anything, yeah.
They have a higher dynamic range. So you don't get any hiss, noise. So the noise to audio or like music ratio is extremely good. It's all music. They handle damage a lot better. So like it's got scratches and whatnot. You can repair them too, which is another thing. You can't really repair.
Difficult.
It's difficult to repair a record.
It's difficult to, like, a record is almost unrepairable.
Depending on what the record damage is, like a warp, there are machines some can remove some warps and stuff, but there is a point to which a record that's the way it is. You listen to it or you don't. A CD, you can also like snap it in half or have a really deep scratch to the point where it's not fixable. But like if it's light surface scratching, whatnot, you can polish them off, and that does work quite a bit of the time. But there are times, obviously, just like anything, where it's just broken. But they handle the damage quite well. They don't really warp like records do. They're a bit smaller. Some of them are thicker. And just kind of like cassettes. I don't know how many different types of CDs there are. I believe the ones I know of, I think there's 3. There's the regular CDs. There's, I think, what they call an ultra high quality CD. I think there's a super disc.
SACD. We have some, yeah.
Yeah, there's some super discs, I think they call them, which really, I don't know the technical specifics of it, but it's those higher quality ones. There's also the Blu-ray style. I believe there's Blu-ray 1, Blu-ray 2.
Yeah.
And just to touch on the Blu-ray topic, those ones are even better at handling damage, like scratches. I don't exactly know how. I think they're a thicker type of CD, or plastic, or harder plastics maybe, but they just handle damage a lot better. They also hold a lot more musical information. So to get into that, CDs are also the music is digital format, written in binary. So I believe it's 16-bit binary, and they're recorded onto CD. I believe around 44 kilohertz, something like that. But with and to get into that as well, the recording studios for any of these, especially modern, If they're digitally recorded, a lot of people get confused with it to think, don't they lose some information, like musical information, audio information, during a digital recording? And it's not really true, because digital recording
It actually couldn't be further from the truth, honestly.
Think of it this way. So with a recording studio, they're taking that, let's say the Daredevil on this song or on this album, they recorded that. The file size, just for example, on this, if it was an MP3, I'm just going to say it's 100 megabytes. It's probably way too big, but I'm going to say it's 100 megabytes. The original recording studio, when they recorded it, because they're recording it at a much larger bit rate and frequency, like they get a lot more information from the recording while it's recording because of how they're recording it and what they're recording it on. So that same 100 megabytes might be a gigabyte or 2 or 10 gigabytes or something like that. So the file size for recording is much larger because of the information they're able to gather. And when they're recording it, that's also they're recording it so they can also digitally optimize and edit that file. So when they've finally decided what that song ends up as, and they're happy with how it turns out, then they save it as a lower file to fit it onto a CD, that kind of thing.
There's on your, to your point on this amount that you can fit on a CD, it makes me think of Nevermind by Nirvana. So on the CD, there's a hidden track. So you'll have about 10 minutes of silence after the very last song, and then a song called Endless Nameless comes on, and it's 6 minutes and 43 seconds, right? So that's 10 minutes and then 6 minutes 43 seconds hidden track on the CD. You could not pull it off on a record.
Yeah,
you couldn't. There's not enough wax. There's not enough.
Well, and then also for that, you wouldn't know it's hit. There's no way you could hide it.
You couldn't hide it.
You could physically see the track where there's nothing playing.
That's right. Yeah.
So you'd be looking at it and be like, why is? If anything, people would be like, what's wrong with this record? Why is there no song? But then you jump to the end and hear the rest of it.
That's
you
right.
You couldn't do that on a record. So you can do that. You could do some funny things with the CD that you couldn't do with a record.
Yep.
But in a way, CDs are superior. I don't know how they compare specifically to a cassette. I believe the cassette and the CD are, when it comes to dynamic range, I believe they're pretty similar. But you can also get a higher quality with CDs, depending on, just like cassettes, depending on the material that you use for the cassettes and the type of CD, or be it like Blu-ray or Super Disc or ultra high quality. It's kind of like a master like a master recording for the other. Like if you get like a Super Disc or something, it's just more data on there, and then that comes back to you need better equipment to play those ones, to fully enjoy those higher quality CDs as well, just due to how much data they have on those files.
Yeah, it's for me, and I'm a purist with the vinyl. For me, there is no, like, if I want absolute perfect sound to demo like a system or something, I go to the CD. Right? Yeah. However, for me, if I got a choice, they're out in front of me, I put the record on. Yeah. I enjoy the record more. Well, however, CD sonically is, for me, perfection.
There's one big difference between the records and the CDs as well. Records are considered a bit more like lively and warm with their music, whereas I think you've said it, CDs are very clean.
Yeah,
it's just the music. There's none of that type of filtering that you get with like a record or anything like that. So if you're a purist in the sense that you just want to hear exactly what the artist wanted it to sound like, the CD's probably the best bet. Mm-hmm. But like if you for purists of records and they like that experience, you're gonna get that warmth, and that also depends on your equipment. Just like all of these don't matter. If you have a really bad piece of equipment, you can really get a better experience when you play around with your equipment and try different pieces and really try and get a specific sound that you're looking for.
Well, yeah, I mean, it really comes down to, it starts with your ears.
Yeah.
how the dynamics of your ears. Maybe you got bad hearing, maybe you got great hearing. How you know different the dynamics of our hearing.
Depending on how many
and then the
concerts you've
room.
been to.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, the room that you're in. This is basically starting downstream, going back to upstream. You've got your ears, the room you're in, the speakers,
Yep.
back to your amplifier and the source, and then the media and the condition of that media. So that is really how it works.
It's a huge envelope of that you have to look at at a whole to really get the experience you're looking for, and it's down to opinion as well.
Yeah.
So, the dynamics of the room, the dynamics of the equipment and the media and all that stuff.
Yeah.
And then one last topic I'm going to touch on as well, because I use it quite a bit, is Spotify or music streaming. So like YouTube, any of that stuff, anywhere you listen to it over the internet, like through your phone or something. This was something I was kind of curious about when I was reading about this as well, because if I'm a little bit more knowledgeable on Spotify, so I'm going to talk about that specifically. And when you go into your settings, there's a few different options where you can get, because I download my music, because people or customers will recommend music to me, and so I can't buy every record myself, so I will listen to them on record or on streaming service to see what I think about it, talk about it, and just being more knowledgeable. But there's different settings for low, like medium, high, very high, I think. So obviously I download mine at very high, and so that just takes up more space on your phone or whatever device you're listening to it on. But it's still not comparable to CD, cassette. I think it's close to a record, but just because of how the file is put together for a streaming service, it's not the best. It's definitely something you can listen to, but even, for example, like I really like the Portishead Dummy. I really like the music on Spotify, which is what I've listened to it on first, and then I listened to it on record, and for me, I really like the record one a lot more. There was just I believe some more of that dynamic range really was just working a lot better. Maybe it's even the equipment that made it sound a lot better, just listening to through my phone versus listening through a Sansui and an Oracle, or just the Oracle and the Sansui. Just maybe that's what did it, and the Sonus Faber speakers. Maybe that's what made it sound a lot better for me, which kind of goes with the question here is what media is best. So it's such a broad question, so that kind of brings it full circle onto everything that I could talk about here today. We might have missed some media.
There's some stuff out there that's
there's some
kind of
rare, obscure stuff that I probably don't even know about myself. But for the ones that I touched on today, I hope that really gives you some answers to what if you're looking to put something together, what you're looking to choose, what media you want to go with. Me personally, I like listening to any of them. I haven't listened to 8-track myself, but like cassettes, CDs, I've listened to some reel-to-reels, records, streaming. I really like listening to all of them and just kind of feeling what it is, because it can really just depend on album, artist, piece of equipment, everything. So it's really fun to just try and play around with all of it. So I really hope you enjoyed all that we talked about today, and I hope to see you in the next video. And please remember to subscribe. One more thing, or two more things I'll actually add. We're changing up our store a bit. As you can see behind me here, we have all of our CDs right here. We have a lot more coming as well. The store's gonna be changing a little bit, but the biggest one is our website is finally up. So if you'd like to check out the website, it's eaglerockrecords.ca, and you can purchase records online through there. You can sign up to our loyalty program, so you can earn points with I believe it's every $1 you get a point, and that works towards earning discounts and that kind of thing. We'll eventually start sending out kind of like newsletters and whatnot, just kind of letting people know what's going on in the store, new arrivals, that kind of stuff. But there's lots of stuff changing here, so it'd be really nice to see you to stop by. And as well, we have a deal going on Thursdays and Fridays. We have some bargain bins. That's buy one, get one free. It's anything under $4.95. So I hope to see you at the store, and please subscribe.